My best friend tried to take my girlfriend right out from under me, and I had the perfect way to get back at him and ended up with a better woman in the process. It all started when I walked into my favorite country bar called Grill. I found a cozy table at the back, ordered a tasty sandwich, some crispy fries, and a cold beer. The atmosphere was nice, and as I sat there, I couldn't help but focus on the TV. It was tuned into a PBS channel, reminiscing about country music and the stars of the past, many of whom are no longer with us. The show had a bittersweet feel to it as they shared stories about these music legends. I was surprised to learn just how many of them had come from tough backgrounds, struggling with little money. While I was enjoying my meal, I looked up and saw my close friend Bob walking in. But he wasn't alone. He was with Olivia, the girl I thought was my girlfriend. The sight hit me like a punch to the gut. Olivia had told me she was busy with friends that night, and even suggested we hang out tomorrow instead. We had been dating for about 6 months, spending every weekend together, and I was falling hard for her. We had even talked about possibly getting engaged, but we agreed to take our time, thinking there was no rush. As the jukebox played, the song, Crazy, started playing. I really got into the lyrics, especially the lines about love that doesn't last forever. It made me wonder if Bob was the somebody new the song talked about. The worst part was that Bob knew how I felt about Olivia. It seemed like our friendship didn't mean much to him. I listened to the song, feeling the weight of its message as I watched them act like a couple. The lyrics hit hard, and I felt a mix of anger and sadness. I couldn't just sit there anymore. I stood up and walked over to them. They both looked at me, and I said to Bob, "Charlie, shut your mouth. If I ever see you again, one of us is going to get hurt." Then I turned to Olivia and said, "I am really disappointed in you. You have shown your true colors. We're done." With that, I walked out of the bar, feeling a mix of anger and betrayal. The following day, my phone wouldn't stop ringing. It was Olivia trying to reach me. I didn't want to talk to her. Then my phone rang again, and this time it was Bob. I picked up and asked, "What do you want?" He sounded remorseful as he said, "I'm really sorry. I know I shouldn't have asked Olivia out, but I did." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "You knew she was my girlfriend, and you still asked her out? How many times have you been with her?" I demanded. "3 times," he replied. "We sort of developed feelings for each other. I'm really sorry." Those words stung. "What about Alice? Does she know you cheated on her?" "She deserves way better than you, Bob. I never want to see you again. As for Olivia, you two can have each other." I hung up, feeling a huge weight lift off my shoulders. Alice was Bob's girlfriend, and the 3 of us all worked at the same factory. There was a whole backstory on how we became friends, but none of it mattered now. My phone rang again, and it was Olivia. I finally decided to answer. "What do you want?" I asked. "I'm sorry. Bob asked me out several times, and I finally agreed. It didn't mean anything," she said. I wasn't having it. "Stop it. I talked to Bob, and he told me you were together 3 times at least. Was it worth it? You both sound like you only care about money. Good luck with that. I want nothing to do with you." The only person I feel sorry for is Alice. She thought you two were her friends. Leave me alone and stop calling. To give you a little background about me, I grew up in Kentucky in a big family with 8 siblings. Being the oldest, I played football in high school, and when I was a senior, I earned a scholarship to a college in Ohio. I was 6 feet 3 inches and weighed 260 pounds, playing as an offensive lineman. Life had its ups and downs, and this situation with Olivia and Bob was definitely one of the down moments. But I knew I would come out of it stronger and ready for something better. My parents faced financial struggles that made it impossible for them to send me to college. Knowing this, I eagerly pursued a scholarship that would allow me to achieve my dream of becoming a mechanical engineer. Ever since I was young, I had a passion for working with my hands, taking things apart, and putting them back together. During my childhood, I was a bit shy, but I had great respect for women, which I learned from growing up with sisters. My mom always told me to treat girls the same way I would want my own sisters to be treated, and I took that advice to heart. While in college, I befriended a guy named Bob. He was very outgoing and friendly, though not particularly athletic. Bob was smart and mentioned that he came from a family with money, although he said that he didn't have much right now. He hinted at the possibility of an inheritance in the future. Bob was studying business management, and whenever I had free time from my classes and engineering projects, we would hang out. Bob had a natural charm with women, and together, We attended many parties where there were plenty of women to meet. Even though I was the more reserved one, I noticed that several girls showed interest in me. I have to give Bob some credit for this. Without his encouragement, my shyness might have kept me from stepping out of my comfort zone. After I graduated, I decided to stay in Ohio, where I secured a job as a mechanical engineer at Ford Motor Company. The pay was good, and I found a small apartment close to the plant. I was also able to buy a late-model pickup truck. Each week, I made it a point to save some money and send $500 back home to support my family. My dad worked as a coal miner, and our family bond was incredibly strong. Bob found a job at a warehouse in the same city as the Ford plant. As luck would have it, the warehouse was one of our suppliers. Eventually, Bob worked his way up to become the warehouse manager. We spent our weekends together, and during one of our meetups, he revealed that he had a girlfriend named Alice, who worked as the inventory control manager at his warehouse. He introduced me to Alice, and right from the start, I could see why Bob liked her. She was wonderful. I felt an instant attraction to her, but Bob and I had a solid friendship code, no messing around with each other's girls. It was a tough situation, but I decided to respect that code. I did go on a few dates with some girls from my own workplace, but I kept things friendly. I couldn't go on double dates with Bob and Alice because being around Alice stirred up feelings for me that were hard to ignore. Bob eventually invited me to their company's Christmas party, as they were one of our suppliers. I thought it would be fun and decided to join. At that party, I met a beautiful girl named Olivia. She had a lovely figure and dressed in a way that was more flirtatious than Alice. Olivia worked with Bob and Alice and mentioned that she was a secretary for one of the higher-ups. We hit it off immediately, dancing the night away and enjoying each other's company. We made plans to meet again and even went out with Bob and Alice for New Year's Eve. During that evening, Alice mentioned that she was happy for me, but I sensed that there was something off about her sincerity. Later in the night, I took Olivia back to my apartment, and let's just say that she made quite an impression on me. The next morning, Olivia seemed surprised to see my humble living situation, which I explained was due to my relatively new job. I shared with her that I preferred to live modestly while sending money home to help my family. I let her know that I would worry about material things in the future, but for now, I was focused on building a good life. Olivia brought up Bob's family wealth, and wondered if it was true since he was my best friend. I confirmed that his family had covered his education costs, and that he had financial support. Our relationship blossomed, and we began going out almost every weekend. My feelings for Olivia deepened, and I knew she felt the same way about me. We enjoyed many activities together, and yes, our intimate connection was definitely a highlight of our relationship. However, sometimes her flirtatious nature and constant talk about money and material things made me uncomfortable. I tried to reassure her that we could have a good life together without focusing too much on possessions. Yet, during those double dates with Bob and Alice, there was an underlying tension that I couldn't quite understand. As time passed, Olivia and I had been together for several months, and the relationship was evolving. After being together for about 6 months, Olivia and I often talked about the future, contemplating the possibility of getting engaged somewhere down the road. Olivia would always remind me that there was no need to rush into any decisions. One weekend, we decided to visit a county fair. As we wandered through the colorful lights and exciting attractions, we stopped at one of those budget jewelry stands. I found a beautiful friendship ring and bought it for Olivia. I explained to her that it symbolized our connection, and that it meant she was mine until she felt ready to take the next step towards engagement. When she slipped the ring on her finger, a big grin spread across her face, which made my heart swell with happiness. During that time, I was also focusing on myself. I had been hitting the gym about 3 times a week after work. I had successfully dropped down to 230 pounds and was feeling pretty good about how I looked. Things were going well until that fateful night at the country bar and grill. I was having a good time when I spotted Olivia and my best friend Bob sharing a passionate kiss. It hit me hard and left me feeling shocked and betrayed. After confronting them over the phone, I made the difficult decision to cut ties with both of them. While I was furious and hurt, I also felt sympathy for Alice, who had always been a good friend to me. 2 weeks passed, and my phone rang. It was Alice, and she sounded genuinely concerned. "Charlie, I'm so sorry about you and Olivia. I figured she might have messed up, but I never thought it would be with Bob." "What's the deal?" she asked. I shared that I had caught Olivia with Bob and that it had compelled me to end all connections with both of them. Alice then mentioned that she had seen Olivia having lunch with her boss, Brad, on several occasions, and it seemed to be a regular occurrence. She had been hesitant to tell me, wanting to protect my feelings in case she was mistaken. But when she learned about Olivia and Bob, she decided to speak up. Despite the rough situation, I appreciated Alice reaching out. We discussed meeting up soon, and I looked forward to catching up with her. A couple of weeks later, while I was at the supermarket, I unexpectedly ran into Alice. "Hey, Charlie! Nice to see you! How's everything going?" She greeted me warmly. I replied that I was doing pretty well. She mentioned that she was back in the dating scene but had turned down several offers because she had her eyes set on someone special. Feeling hopeful, I decided to take a chance. "Oh, I'm sorry! I was actually going to ask you if you'd like to go out with me," I said. To my delight, she responded, "Yes, I'd love to go out with you. You're the one I was hoping would ask." We settled on Saturday for a night out at my favorite country bar and grill. I confirmed I would pick her up at 6. When Saturday arrived, I drove over to her place. She greeted me in a fantastic Western outfit, jeans, a vest, a cowgirl hat, and boots. She looked absolutely stunning. As she hopped into my truck, I felt excited for the evening ahead. The bar was known for its live country music, and that night, a great band was set to play. We snagged a booth and ordered a couple of beers while we waited for the music to start. I ordered a double bacon cheeseburger with fries, and Alice went for a Reuben sandwich. We decided to share the fries, enjoying the chance to reconnect. During our conversation, I was pleasantly surprised to learn that Alice was originally from Kentucky, just a county over from my hometown. She had gone to college there, applied for jobs, and eventually secured a position at a supply plant in Ohio. As we chatted, Alice asked if this was the same bar where I had caught Olivia and Bob together. I confirmed that it was, but I was determined not to let their betrayal ruin my favorite hangout. Her smile showed she understood. Once the band started playing, we got up to dance. They began with a couple of slow songs to get couples onto the dance floor, and their playlist included classic hits that the crowd loved. When the tempo picked up, we both decided to sit that one out. I let Alice know that I was not big into fast-paced dancing but enjoyed watching the ladies move. The band played a few Roy Orbison songs, which brought back fond memories for me. Soon, Alice and I were back on the dance floor for the slower songs. The announcer then invited the ladies up for some line dancing, and a few guys joined in as well. I playfully nudged Alice. "Why not join the line dancing?" She teased back, grinning at me. "You just want to check out my big A****." With laughter and smiles, we continued to enjoy our evening together, feeling a spark of connection once more. She teased me with a smile as she got up to join the other women who were already lining up for the dance. As the line dancing began, my attention was completely drawn to Alice. She caught my eye and, with a playful wiggle, gave her booty a little shake. I couldn't help but grin and even found myself clapping for her as the music played on. When the song ended, Alice walked over with a bright smile on her face. I leaned in to give her a kiss, but pulled back slightly, feeling a rush of nerves. "I'm sorry," I said, almost instinctively. "I'm not sorry," she replied with a cheeky smile, kissing me again, and we both laughed. We spent the next few hours dancing and enjoying a few beers together, losing track of time as we soaked in the fun atmosphere around us. Before long, the announcement came that the last song was about to begin. I held Alice close as we swayed together, completely immersed in the moment. When the song wrapped up, I leaned in once more, this time planting a soft kiss on her lips. Afterward, I drove her home and asked if she would like to go out again the next Saturday. I suggested we could visit Cedar Point, a popular amusement park in Ohio, and to my delight, she happily agreed. We shared a sweet goodnight kiss, and I felt a sense of satisfaction. I wanted to take things slow on our first date, and I felt fantastic at work throughout the week. On Friday, I called Alice to confirm our plans for Saturday. She mentioned that she had heard about the amusement park but had never been there before. Saturday morning arrived, and I picked her up, excited for the day ahead. During the drive, we chatted comfortably, and I brought up whether she had mentioned our dating to Bob or Olivia. She replied that she hadn't spoken to either of them about it, which surprisingly eased my mind. Our day at the park was incredible. We rode all the thrilling roller coasters and tried out as many rides as we could handle. Along the way, we also caught several entertaining shows that the park offered. As the sun began to set, we decided to grab dinner at a Texas roadhouse. By the time we returned home, exhaustion had set in, but it was a contented kind of tired. Alice shared her home with a roommate named Joan, a friendly woman likely in her 50s who worked in retail. Alice appreciated having Joan around, as she treated her like family, and they had formed a close bond. I informed Alice that I would be out of town the following weekend, but I expressed my strong interest in seeing her the week after. She smiled and said I should give her a call when I returned. As we shared another kiss, I told her how much I genuinely cared for her. Alice then revealed that she had always liked me too. When I got home, I didn't waste any time. I called Alice and invited her to a significant dinner event my boss was hosting. It was an anniversary celebration for himself and his wife, taking place at the Hilton Hotel. I explained that I had booked a hotel room for the night since I expected that there would be a lot of drinking involved. I reassured her that if she were not interested in attending, I would completely understand. Her response was enthusiastic. "Charlie, I'd be thrilled to go with you. We won't need 2 beds," she said playfully. Then, her tone became serious. "I want you to know I'm falling in love with you. Just promise to be honest and not lead me on." I quickly replied, "I would never cause you any harm, and I'll make sure nobody else does either." As we discussed travel logistics, I asked if we could use her car for the event. I preferred not to show up at a fancy affair in my truck. Alice agreed, saying she would let Joan know we wouldn't be home that night. I parked my truck at her place, and we took her car to the event. We arrived early so we could get ready at the hotel. During the ride, Alice mentioned that she was considering looking for a new job because she felt uncomfortable seeing Bob and Olivia regularly. She also shared a rumor that Olivia might be pregnant. At the hotel, I got dressed for the party in the bathroom, putting on a tuxedo. When I emerged, Alice took my breath away. She wore a form-fitting blue dress that showcased her figure beautifully, and her hair cascaded down to her shoulders, giving her an elegant yet alluring look. "You look absolutely gorgeous," I said, feeling a little amazed. "I might not even care about the party itself," I added meaningfully. With a cheeky smile, she replied, "Oh no you don't. I didn't go through all this effort just to change again." We both laughed and made our way downstairs to the party. Upon arrival, my boss and his wife greeted us warmly. He introduced me to his wife and welcomed us to the event. As they moved away, I couldn't help but notice him stealing glances at Alice. Knowing many people at the event, I introduced Alice to everyone I recognized. She received numerous compliments, and we grabbed some drinks before settling down at a table. The event featured a delicious array of appetizers. with plans for a full dinner later in the evening. Alice spotted a couple of familiar faces among the crowd, 2 women she frequently interacted with due to her job in inventory control. Being in a position that connected her with various colleagues, she quickly recognized how networking at events like this could lead to new opportunities. I took the chance to approach Mary, the head of human resources, to start a conversation. "Mary, are there any job openings in inventory control or the supply chain?" I asked. Mary replied, "Actually, yes. Janice is retiring next month, and I've been tasked with finding her replacement. Do you have anyone in mind?" I thought for a moment and said, "Actually, my date, Alice, you've met her before. She's looking for a new job opportunity in inventory control. She enjoys her work but is ready for a change." Mary smiled and responded, "Tell her to come see me on Monday, and I'll set up an interview for her. She's quite a striking woman." "Thank you, Mary. I truly appreciate this," I replied. "Oh, I'm sure you do," she chuckled, adding a light-hearted vibe to the conversation. As the evening progressed, the party turned out to be a lot more fun than I initially expected. I enjoyed a few dances with the wives of other employees, while Alice danced with her husband too. However, most of the time, we found ourselves dancing together, enjoying each other's company. The dinner was absolutely fantastic, with options like roast beef, chicken, and shrimp, accompanied by an array of side dishes. After indulging in wonderful food and having a few more drinks, we decided it was time to bid goodnight to our hosts and head upstairs to our hotel room. Once inside, I turned to Alice. "Are you absolutely certain about this? I don't want you to think I'm trying to take advantage of you." "Charlie, stop overthinking this, and just be with me," she said, reaching to help me out of my dress. We carefully hung her dress and my tuxedo up, then pulled down the covers to get comfortable in bed. After I turned off the lights, we snuggled in close, and soon enough, I started drifting off. The last words I heard from Alice before sleep took over were, "I love you, Charlie." I awoke the next morning to the enticing aroma of fresh coffee. Alice had already taken a shower, gotten dressed, and made us both a cup of coffee. "Good morning, Charlie. Did you sleep well?" she asked, beaming with that morning glow. "It's been a while since I slept so well," I replied. After I took a quick shower and enjoyed a cup of coffee, we headed down to the dining room for a pleasant breakfast with our fellow employees. It was nice to see so many familiar faces, all smiling and sharing in the joy of the occasion. I noticed how Alice and I seemed to be becoming a known couple among the group. As we sat, Mary from HR walked by our table on her way out and said cheerfully to Alice, "See you Monday." "What was that about?" Alice questioned curiously. I grinned and replied, "I forgot to tell you, you have an interview with Mary on Monday at Ford. Remember you mentioned considering a job change?" That news brought tears to her eyes as she softly whispered, "Charlie, I hope this isn't a dream. I love you so much." On our way home, we chatted about our plans, and I mentioned, "I hope I'm not rushing things, but I'm planning a trip to visit my parents in Kentucky in 2 weeks. I'd love for you to come along. I'll be leaving on Friday evening and returning Sunday. We could even stop to see your parents if that sounds good to you. I'd be happy to join you, but my parents are a bit traditional. We might not be sharing a bed," she replied cautiously. "I'm confident things will fall into place," I assured her. When the time finally came, we set off for our trip to Kentucky. While driving, Alice brought up the latest rumors she had heard about Bob and Olivia, who were rumored to be planning to get married next month due to Olivia's noticeable pregnancy. "I think Olivia believes she's marrying into wealth," Alice speculated. "But she's going to find out soon enough that it's not Bob who is well off, it's really his parents. Bob may have a flashy lifestyle, but it's mostly on borrowed money." Upon arriving at my parents' home, we were welcomed by the sight of a spacious old farmhouse, complete with numerous bedrooms and bathrooms. My siblings, who still lived there, came out to greet us, followed by my mom and dad. I embraced everyone and introduced Alice, who received warm hugs and smiles from all of them. We spent a couple of hours chatting and catching up. I felt confident that my family would adore Alice. She was particularly drawn to the photos on the wall, and paused to look at one of me in my football uniform from my younger days. I noticed tears welling up in her eyes. "Alice, what's wrong? Are you okay?" I asked, concerned. She took a deep breath and said, "Do you remember that time when you were playing football at Gring during an away game? After the match, you walked through the tunnel, and there were 2 guys trying to drag a girl in a yellow sweater. 2 men were struggling to pull a girl wearing a yellow sweater into a tunnel when you stepped in to help. You confronted one of the men, pushing him down to the ground, and then quickly tackled the other one. You made it very clear that if they ever bothered the girl again, you would come back to finish what you started. After delivering this warning, you walked away and headed to the locker room. Although that incident has stuck with you, you've never discussed it with anyone before. So, when Charlie asked how you knew about it, you decided to share your secret. You revealed that you were that girl in the yellow sweater. You explained that while you never saw his face that day, you did remember the number 67 on his jersey. After the incident, you had tried to find him, but no one seemed to know who he was. The only thing you managed to uncover was his name, Charles. You explained that you were waiting by the tunnel for your friend when those 2 guys suddenly grabbed you and started dragging you along, claiming they just wanted to have some fun. You yelled for them to let you go, and that's when he showed up. After that day, they never bothered you again. As you shared the story, you leaned in and kissed Charlie, feeling a sense of familiarity wash over you from the first time you met him when Bob introduced you. You couldn't help but think of Bob, and you reflected that he was the only positive part of the situation. Your mom had arranged for Alice to have a bed in your home and had also told you that you could sleep in the basement where there was an extra bed. Later that night, around 1 a.m., Alice quietly joined you in the basement, and even though the circumstances were a bit awkward, you shared an intimate moment before she returned to her own bed about an hour later. The following Saturday, you visited Alice's family, and you were surprised to discover that her parents were quite wealthy. They had a lovely house, and you noticed Alice had 2 younger sisters who were both attractive and a few years younger than her. Alice introduced you as her boyfriend, and you overheard Sandy, one of her sisters, say that you looked quite handsome. After some friendly conversation, Hank, her father, asked about your job and background, clearly concerned for his daughter. In a moment of courage, you decided to speak up. You told Mr. Carter that you wanted to talk to him about marrying Alice and asked for his blessing. Since Alice and you hadn't discussed this beforehand, she seemed surprised and a little teary-eyed as she looked at you. You expressed your deep feelings for Alice, explaining that even though you hadn't been together long, Your love was strong, and you believed you could build a wonderful life together through marriage. Charlie, I appreciate that you came to talk to me, though you didn't have to. You should know by now that Alice follows her heart." He then turned to Alice for confirmation. "Alice, do you love Charlie?" he asked, and she responded with heartfelt sincerity. "Yes, Daddy, I truly do, with all my heart." With that, Hank nodded his approval, granting his blessing on one condition. You two must have the wedding in Kentucky so that he and Alice's mother could host a proper celebration, and they offered to cover the expenses. In a moment that surprised everyone, you reached into your pocket, pulled out an engagement ring, knelt down on one knee, and proposed to Alice. With tears of joy in her eyes, she said yes, kissed you, and then rushed over to embrace her dad while her mom wiped away happy tears. The family gathered around, and you all enjoyed a fantastic chicken dinner, filled with laughter and warmth. After dinner, you went back to your home to share the exciting news of your engagement with your parents. They were absolutely thrilled. Many relatives who lived nearby came over for a barbecue that afternoon. Your dad proudly took on the role of grill master, while your mom prepared the meat and other delicious dishes in the kitchen. Alice offered to help out, mentioning that she enjoyed cooking, which only made her fit in more with your family. When all your relatives arrived, they warmly welcomed Alice, the first woman you had ever brought home to meet your family. They all assured you that she was a keeper and urged you to make her happy. After a joyful day of celebration, you waved goodbye to your relatives, promising to keep them updated about the wedding plans. Later that night, just before heading to bed, Alice whispered to you that your mom had warned her about a step on the stairs. It turned out she accidentally kicked a pair of shoes, sending them tumbling down. Alice tried to apologize, but your mom reassured her, saying she had been young once and that Alice's lively spirit was probably the reason she had so many children. Alice eventually came back downstairs, and the two of you shared a sweet moment as you both prepared for your future together. Alice eventually made her way back downstairs, and we shared a quiet, intimate moment together. We tried to keep our voices low, knowing how easy it is for secrets to slip out, but as the hours passed, we lost track of time. It wasn't until nearly 5 in the morning that she finally went back upstairs after a night filled with closeness and shared thoughts. Eventually, we both drifted off to sleep, feeling content. The next morning, as the sun began to rise, I noticed my mom and Alice exchanging knowing smiles. It was a sweet moment that spoke volumes without needing words. Afterward, we gathered for a hearty country breakfast, enjoying pancakes, eggs, and bacon. As the meal wound down, we said our goodbyes with warm hugs and kisses, before heading our separate ways. Monday was a big day for Alice since she had her appointment with the HR department for a job she really wanted. The following day, Tuesday, she received an exciting call from Mary, who shared the great news: Alice had gotten the job. She could officially hand in her 2-week notice at her current workplace. Alice called to share the exciting update, but I already knew since I had been in the loop. We decided to celebrate her achievement by going out for dinner that evening at my favorite country bar. At the restaurant, we both ordered steak dinners, savoring the rich flavors. During our meal, Alice mentioned that Bob and Olivia were on vacation for the next 2 weeks, heading to Las Vegas to get married. She said it was the most enjoyable period she had experienced at the plant because she didn't have to deal with Bob and Olivia. Alice noted that while everyone was sad to see her leave, they understood that she was moving on to a better opportunity. A job at Ford meant high pay and great benefits, making her feel lucky to have landed the interview and offer. Alice kept our dating and engagement a secret from everyone at work. She told me that before she left her old job, she had written an anonymous note to Bob. The note advised him to consider a DNA test after his baby was born, given his wife's frequent lunches with her boss. She ended the note with congratulations but left it unsigned, adding a bit of mystery to her departure. From the moment Alice started at our workplace, she had a bright smile. Whenever guys approached her, she always made it clear that she was engaged to me, wearing her engagement ring proudly. They seemed to understand the boundaries, knowing it was best not to cross them. Alice mentioned that Joan was helping her plan the wedding. Joan was very supportive, almost like a caring guardian. Joan had a married daughter of her own, and she and Alice had developed a close friendship while sharing expenses as roommates. I made it a point to visit a couple of times each week to help out with the wedding plans. I reached out to my mom for a list of relatives and friends we could invite from my side of the family. My mom, being proactive, went a step further and bought the invitations, taking that off our plate. I gave her the wedding date, which was set for 4 months later. Alice also talked to her mom and shared the wedding date with her. Her parents took on the task of finding a nice church and a spacious venue for the reception. Alice's mom even offered to handle the invitations for their side, taking advantage of her husband Hank's connections and his business background. Even though I was anxious about everything involved in the planning, I realized I wasn't contributing as much as I could. I decided to talk to several of my colleagues at work, inviting them to our wedding in Kentucky. To my surprise, many expressed their excitement and intention to attend. Thanks to Joan's connections at the retail store, she arranged for a dressmaker to design Alice's wedding gown, ensuring that it would be perfect for the occasion. Joan confirmed she and her daughter would be there to support us. Alice's mother, Sophie, also kept us in the loop. She called to let us know she had secured a caterer for the wedding, but she would need a head count closer to the date. Sophie also mentioned that Hank had lined up a talented band for the reception, adding to the excitement of the preparations. It felt like everything was coming together nicely. I asked Alice if she thought we were going a bit overboard with the wedding preparations, given the amount of work and money involved. Alice reassured me, saying, "Charlie, this grand wedding idea is entirely my parents' vision. They've dreamed of this kind of wedding since we were little girls. Trust me, my sisters will have similar lavish weddings." I realized I had never fully understood the wealthy background she came from until she said this, leaving me surprised. I chose to keep my family's financial background a secret because I wanted you to focus on me as a person, rather than on my family's wealth or status. Just so you know, I only shared this information with Joan. Bob is not aware of it. Now that you know, does this revelation change anything for you? I want you to know that I'm interested in you for who you are, not for any material reasons. If it makes you feel more secure, I am open to signing a prenuptial agreement. However, I truly believe we will be together forever, and I don't think a prenup will be necessary. Right now, I don't have much wealth to speak of, and while I might inherit some things in the future, it's not significant at the moment. What matters to me is having a loving partner by my side. Alice was busy organizing the details for the wedding party. She decided that her father would walk her down the aisle, and her older sister would take on the important role of maid of honor. Her younger sister would also be part of the wedding as a bridesmaid. Alice invited my 2 married sisters to be bridesmaids as well, and my brothers-in-law would serve as groomsmen. The arrangement worked out perfectly since my single brothers would each be paired with her sisters. I later found out that my younger brother would have the honor of being my best man. For the special roles of flower girl and ring bearer, we chose our niece and nephew, which added a lovely family touch to the ceremony. We reached out to everyone in the lineup, and they all happily accepted their roles. It was shaping up to be a true family affair. Alice was flourishing at her new job, and everyone loved her. It was easy to see why. She was well liked by her colleagues who admired her work ethic. However, a small problem arose. Since Alice had only been with the company for 4 months, she hadn't accumulated any vacation days yet. We thought about our options and considered leaving for the wedding on Friday night, getting married on Saturday, and returning on Sunday. It would be a whirlwind experience, but given our limited options, it seemed like a feasible plan. 2 weeks before the wedding, I was called into the plant manager's office. We had developed a good relationship, and he casually mentioned that he was planning to attend the wedding. "Hey Charlie, I heard you're dealing with a bit of an issue around your wedding time. Mary mentioned that you're leaving on Friday, tying the knot on Saturday, and coming back on Sunday. Is that correct?" I responded, "Yes, Mark, that's the plan. Alice doesn't have any vacation days left." To my surprise, Mark smiled and said, "Well, make sure to let your lovely wife know that we're granting her personal time from Thursday all the way through the following week. Also, I've got a special gift for you both, a pair of tickets for a 4-day cruise as a honeymoon present." I was grateful and thanked him, knowing that Alice would be thrilled with the news. I promptly called Alice at her office to let her know we were going out for lunch. I told her I had something important to discuss with her. While we were at the restaurant, Alice asked, "So, what's going on, Charlie?" I replied, "Mark called me into his office and informed me that they're giving you time off from Thursday until the end of the following week. We don't have to rush, we can take our time." Then I added, "Oh, and there's more. He gave us 2 tickets for a 4-day cruise as a wedding gift." I laid the tickets on the table, and tears welled up in Alice's eyes. With everything ready for the wedding, we could now travel down on Thursday, which made our plans much easier. Our rehearsal and rehearsal dinner would take place on Friday. I checked in with my dad to see if he needed any money for the wedding expenses. He assured me that he had saved the money I sent him since we announced our engagement. I admired that about him. His dedication and support meant a lot to me. After the rehearsal dinner, I shared a kiss with Alice and told her I would see her the next day. Alice had already informed her mom about the number of guests attending the wedding and reception, but she didn't tell me the exact count, considering I was already feeling nervous. I knew that all my siblings, aunts, uncles, and their families would be there. I heard that motels in both counties had been fully booked for months, so I hoped our guests would find accommodations. On Saturday morning, I woke up to my mom urging me to have breakfast. She insisted that I couldn't go through such an important day on an empty, anxious stomach. During breakfast, Mom mentioned that they had met the Carters and found them to be incredibly friendly. They spoke highly of me, which warmed my heart. After breakfast, I took a long shower and shaved, preparing myself for the day ahead. I dressed in my tuxedo, a crisp white one to match Alice's beautiful dress. My brothers also got ready, and we were all set to celebrate a day filled with love and family. All 4 of my brothers were at the wedding, dressed impeccably in black tuxedos, looking sharp and ready for the big day. They were part of the wedding party, and excitement filled the air as it was time for us to head to the church. The church, located just a short 20 miles away in the neighboring county, was a grand building that could comfortably hold more than 600 guests, as my brother informed me. As the guests began to arrive, my brothers and I took it upon ourselves to help them find their seats. Although they told me I didn't need to assist, I insisted on doing something to contribute to the day. Among the guests were Joan and her daughter, and I guided them to sit with the families on Alice's side. As I continued to seat relatives, I was pleasantly surprised to spot some familiar faces, including a few of my coworkers. My boss, Mark, and his wife had flown in for the occasion, which added to the joy of the day. Before long, I received a message that Alice's limousine had arrived, signaling it was almost time for the ceremony to begin. I quickly made my way to the front of the church to speak with my parents for a moment. Just as I was chatting with them, a woman began to play beautiful music on the organ. After a couple of songs filled the air, an announcement was made, asking all the guests to take their seats as the wedding was about to start. Standing beside the minister at the front, I looked forward to the unique moments each wedding brings. The first to walk down the aisle was Sandy, who looked stunning as she was accompanied by my brother. They made a striking pair as they gracefully walked up to the front and took their positions. Next came Marie, walking down with my other single brother, followed by my married brothers with their wives. The excitement built as my nephew made his way down the aisle as the ring bearer. Meanwhile, I held the actual wedding ring safely in my pocket, feeling the weight of the moment. To add to the festivity, 2 men rolled out a white cloth down the aisle, and my niece followed suit, scattering rose petals as she walked. The music shifted, and everyone rose in unison as the wedding march began to play. The atmosphere became electric as Alice, escorted by her proud father, made her way down the aisle. She looked astonishingly beautiful, almost like an angel, and tears began to stream down my face as I took in the moment. When the time came, her father proudly proclaimed, "Who presents this woman to this man?" And with heartfelt joy, he responded that he and her mother did. We exchanged vows, and I placed the ring on Alice's finger, eagerly awaiting the moment I would be allowed to kiss my bride. Finally, I was given the signal, and I leaned in to kiss her, sealing our promise to each other. With great enthusiasm, I introduced everyone to Mr. and Mrs. Charles Jones, and the crowd erupted with cheers and applause. As we stood at the church door with the other members of the wedding party, we expressed our heartfelt gratitude to everyone who had come to celebrate with us. It took a while for the church to clear out, over 30 minutes, as guests made their way to the rented hall for the reception. Upon our arrival at the hall, we were greeted with drinks and a variety of appetizers. A band played lively music, although most guests seemed hesitant to hit the dance floor at that moment. The tables were arranged neatly around the room as we entered. As we walked into the hall, the crowd stood up and cheered, welcoming us enthusiastically. We took our seats, and Mr. Carter, speaking on behalf of the family, said a few words before announcing that the food was ready. The serving tables were positioned on both sides of the hall, ensuring everyone received their meals promptly. Alice and I were served first, but we ended up finishing our meal last since we kept pausing to kiss every time someone clinked their glasses. To create more space for dancing, some of the tables were moved back, and soon Alice and I were the first couple to take the dance floor. One by one, the rest of the wedding party joined us, and eventually, everyone got into the spirit of dancing. The reception continued for a solid 4 hours, with some guests even treating themselves to another round of food. It truly was a fantastic night filled with joy, laughter, and love. As an epilogue to this beautiful day, we had a wonderful time during our cruise afterward. Bringing my truck to the wedding turned out to be a smart decision. I rented a small U-Haul to load up all the gifts we received. When we returned home, Alice and I began our search for a new house together. After some time, we found a lovely 3-bedroom home that featured a hot tub. Initially, we spent a couple of weeks in my small apartment, but Alice felt we needed something a bit more spacious. We decided to leave the gifts we brought back at the Joneses' house since we wouldn't be living there. Before finalizing our plans, we checked to see if Alice could manage on her own, and she assured us that she didn't have any financial troubles. She simply enjoyed taking care of things herself. She found great joy in taking care of Alice, a role she embraced wholeheartedly. However, that responsibility is now shared between us, creating a sense of teamwork and partnership. Every evening, we dedicate time to writing thank you cards, expressing our gratitude for the kindness shown to us. I believe we are nearing the completion of that task, which has become a lovely ritual for us. Additionally, we enjoy lunch together at work about 3 times a week, allowing us to catch up and strengthen our bond even further. It has now been 3 months since the wedding, and I can confidently say that everything is going really well in our lives. We have not experienced any arguments, which is quite remarkable. Whenever we do have differences of opinion, we always make it a point to discuss them openly. We understand the importance of communication, and we actively practice it in our daily interactions. This has been key to our smooth relationship. Recently, Alice mentioned that one of her friends from another workplace reached out to her, sharing some concerning news about Bob. Olivia discovered that Bob is facing significant financial trouble, struggling under a mountain of debt. There were also whispers about someone suggesting that Bob consider taking a DNA test once Olivia has the baby, although the origin of that information remains unclear. A few weeks passed after Alice's initial conversation, and then she received another phone call with updates regarding Bob and Olivia's situation. It turns out that Bob did go through with the DNA test, and the results revealed that he is not the father of Olivia's baby. This unexpected revelation is quite shocking and leaves many questions unanswered. Thank you for taking the time to read my story. I thought you might find the part about the country music interesting. It's a true experience I saw featured on PBS.